I'm Sanjay Patel, and I graduated from Carnegie Mellon in 2000, and I have not gone back for graduate school. I decided that I wanted to get out in the world and work, but I'm learning every day. You know, I always found that by doing something rather than reading something, I learned and acquired and retained that information better. So that's always been the way I learned. And I have a mobile app agency. It's ranked as one of the top 6 in the country by Apple, and we build apps, we design apps, we do strategy for companies, mainly in the Fortune 500 range, that size. And yeah, it's been great. You know, it's really a culmination of since I started 11 years ago, it's a culmination of learning about technology, as well as design, as well as understanding how people use the technology and making it easier for them. And so mobility is really the intersection of all of those, because mobile phones are such an intimate device, and it's a personal device that you carry around with you everywhere you go. And you know, it's really important that the interactions you have with a brand or with an app or brand, via an app, be really consistent with how you'd like your brand to be perceived. So companies are starting to really see the value of maintaining and investing in a really good and well-designed and intuitive application that extends and improves your life. So in order to do that, you really have to understand how people are going to be, what their day-to-day lives are, and then understand how your brand can actually integrate into that, as opposed to putting out a product and pushing it out there or marketing it out there and expecting that people just buy it. Because you're now much more connected with the consumer. You have, one, the ability to get direct feedback from them and be a more intimate, more close part of their life. But at the same time, there's a lot more transparency to that. So if you actually don't execute well, or if you don't have a good, for example, if you get a notification and the alarm doesn't go off at the right time, people are relying on the alarm to wake up, and they're going to associate that negative experience with your brand. So it's even more important now for you to actually market what you actually are, rather than be able to just sell. The name of the company came, I made it up in front of a business card office in India. It was actually in India, and I said, well, I need the name of a company in order to print business cards. And I always thought the business cards that are printed in India were very unique. So I said, well, I'd like to get it printed here. And so then that's how I came up with the name Perpetuating. And I thought that I wanted to build a business that allowed me to create technology solutions that would last a long time. And I thought that perpetuating was sort of a word that was consistent with that, and also just one word, so it'd be easier to say. At the time, very few people actually knew how to say perpetuating. But now if you Google perpetuating, there's actually a lot of people use that word, which is really interesting. 11 years ago. But when I was in college, my dream was I really wanted to do something in India. And so I had a professor of entrepreneurship who I did an outsourcing sort of study with, and he was very skeptical about it, because by then in 2000 it was sort of, they thought that outsourcing was relatively mature. It certainly wasn't nascent, but I just wanted to do something in India. I thought that India and Southeast Asia is of strategic importance to the globe. It's a growing economy overall. I thought that, in general, if it made sense to invest in India, given my background and given the position of where India is in terms of their population and, its economy. So regardless of whether or not, a software company or outsourcing that was sort of leveraging the resources of India, whether or not that was really going to be the primary business was irrelevant. The main idea was to go to India and start exploring and investing in the growth of that country. So obviously, having graduated with computer science, information systems, and business background, it made a lot of sense to leverage a marketable skill like programming to pay the bills and eventually to create a business. And so that's how Perpetuating evolved. It started out with programming and leveraging the talent offshore, and then, you know, expanded over time based on what my passions were, what I loved doing, and then what our clients demanded. So as our clients demanded more and more services, you know, obviously I had to let other people in the team do those things, and in order to grow, we needed a way to make, you know, we needed really good talent, and we also needed a way to execute quickly, and India was instrumental in doing that because we were able to find the resources very easily. We were able to train them and develop processes that were repeatable. It was obviously incredibly cost effective to start with. So, you know, I think it was really great. And at the same time, I was definitely investing in India, learning about their real estate, learning about their the culture, the way of business, meeting all kinds of executives. And over the years, you know, we've done many projects in India in addition to the software company, many other projects that have, some of which have been even better investments than the software company itself. So. Perpetuating is a services company where where we're helping Fortune 500 companies build mobile solutions, build and design mobile solutions, and then Perpetuating Ventures was we really took the capital from Perpetuating, and then we said, well, we'd like to invest in early stage startups, and our model there. So the capital's coming from Perpetuating, and the model there was, you know, we're really partnering with incubators because our real sort of what we bring to the table is we provide technology assistance to the startups so that they can execute faster, they can execute more reliably, and they can also have a little bit more insight from the market because Perpetuating is already operating in the B2B market. So, so we can actually also better understand what products will be successful, particularly around mobility and you know, other types of technology, you know. And so, so what we do is we partner with incubators. Incubators are really good at identifying the companies and teams that have the best chance of being successful. And we're really good at helping those teams execute on the technology side and design. So together, you know, that the idea is that could become really successful. So that's what we're trying out. It's only been 2 years. It takes about 5 to 7 years before you start to see, you know, outcome from that. You know, the fact everything always has a plus and minus. You know, the fact that technology is always changing is definitely a challenge because, you know, we're always having to, every 18 months, we're having to learn new things and then actually have to prove that we are able to execute on those things. As a services provider to companies, they want to know that you actually know the discipline, and they're constantly looking and reading about these new technologies, and so they also want to be able to understand how those technologies fit into their portfolio of what they offer to their employees and customers. So it's a major challenge because you have a lot of noise, you have a lot of new technologies that may not be relevant. Some of the new technologies may be highly relevant, but there's a lot of people that are using them incorrectly, and at the same time, you know, it also opens a door towards for our competitors to come in and all of a sudden be experts. 18 months later, you know, 18 months before we were experts in mobile, and then, you know, 2 years later, someone else is an expert in big data analytics. So it's incredibly challenging to stay competitive. However, at the same time, you know, there's a plus side of it, which is that it's constantly evolving and changing, which is really great. So that lends itself to providing and creating a culture for our staff that is very exciting, you know, where they're constantly learning, where they're constantly, you know, excited about what's going to be the next project. And so that's been really great. I think it's also been great because there might be periods of where maybe we're not the leaders. You know, maybe there's during e-commerce when we started out, you know, we came in late to the e-commerce game. Even though we worked with some really great companies, we certainly weren't considered leaders. But now we're leaders in mobile. So, you know, that's another advantage for us. I think that the thing with technology is that you've got to, it's really what you do with the resources and the brand that you have. And now we're getting to the point of where, you know, because we have a brand, because our brand is developing more strongly, people will come to us just because they trust us. So they will come to us because they trust us in telling them how to use a new technology and how to best integrate that inside their business. And so that's great, you know. So that's sort of the best place to be, I think, in technology. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more that could be done by the government to, you know, again, like I said, the smartphone is a really intimate personal device, and so it allows you to have a direct channel to your people. And obviously, you know, this is a democratic country, and so obviously being able to connect and directly talk to your people is of paramount importance. So, you know, if you think about voting, for example, when there's an election, you know, right now you have to, if you're not in the city, or even you have to be in a specific town and vote at a specific polling station, or else you have to mail in your ballots, and a lot of people aren't able to do that. And it's certainly a pride for many people to work hard to make sure that they can get their ballots in and vote. However, you know, it's also a challenge, and we don't have, you know, 100% or 90% people voting. It's a lot lower. So if you had a smartphone where you could vote with a smartphone, then imagine, then it'd be so much easier, right? You could actually, people would be able to talk about the senators that they don't like, you know, or that they don't like the performance of, or imagine if you would know, you know, for example, the public servants and what they're doing with the money. And, you know, here are the things that the public servants communicated that they were going to, like senators and, you know, people in the House of Representatives. These are the things that they claimed that they would do. These are the policies that they said they would support. And then, you know, where's the actual data on what they voted on? So with technology, you can create transparency, particularly with smartphones, because it's real time, because it's intimate. People can then also communicate back and respond and vote. And, you know, so I think that there's a lot that can be done just by opening a channel to each individual American, and, you know, providing some sort of stream of data, even if it's just a little bit more transparency. I think that would transform a lot of aspects of how people perceive the government and how involved and active people are. And I think that's a huge improvement. I also think that there's a lot of improvement that could be done in the transportation sector. So, you know, Amtrak, for example, is publicly funded, and now they have smartphones, and you can get onto the train without having to print your ticket, and, you know, they scan it with a barcode scanner on an iPhone. And so I think that, you know, those types of things make it easier to travel and to you know, be around it. Also, from a security perspective, there are some benefits as well. So absolutely. Being in technology I mean, technology has been one of the industries of where there have been a continual growth in jobs. You know, it's one of the few industries of where you have growth in jobs, and the jobs have also been, you know, middle class, upper middle class jobs. And so I think that that will continue to be the case, because the technology inherently provides efficiencies. And so those efficiencies always have some sort of dollar value associated with them, and therefore there's always going to be some sort of value associated with someone that can, you know, leverage the technologies. As long as the technologies are making things easier, businesses will find a way to monetize them, and then they will need people to help them do that. So I think technology in general is an excellent place to go if you want to start a business, because I think one of the fundamental concepts if you want to start your own business is you need to be creating value. If you're not creating value, you can't sell your services or products, and if you can't sell, you don't have a business. Now, having said that, I think that there's really limited point in starting a business if you're not passionate about what you do, and you've got to kind of have an idea of what direction you want to go in terms of where your passions lie. It doesn't mean that you need to know that you want to have a software company, or you want to have a Subway franchise, but you need to know what you're passionate about doing, because starting a business and running a business requires a lot of work, it requires perseverance. It is a lot of hard work, and, you know, it's taken me 11 years. So you have to really invest in the business, in time, in energy, in, you know, strength, and, you know, really create something. Well, once you have a business, it's like as if you invest in improving your house. You invest in something, that becomes an asset that you can then use, right? So once you have invested in the business and invested in yourself and learning about yourself and also learning about how you can contribute and create value through the business, then that business will have inherent value and will provide you with dividends that can help support all kinds of things. And they may involve other types of businesses that you want to create, or they may involve an expansion of the business that you created. They may involve hobbies. They may involve many other things. And so I think that it's there's so many things that can be created, and I think we're in an exciting time of where we have the ability to we have these beautiful smartphones that can that are creative tools. We have an appreciation of design. I think that some people are becoming more aware of. I think we have technology is becoming more and more available to the masses, and I think that overall, this is a great time for people to start businesses, because you can do a lot more with a lot less. A laptop and a smartphone, you can literally manage a business from anywhere depending on your business. So, so it's really just figure out your passion, figure out a way to create value, and then just keep investing in yourself in the business, and over time it'll grow.